teens by the time the January pops around in the daytime, to where our nighttime temps are in the negatives in the first 2 weeks of January. This year we're going into January in the 40s. So I have mid 30s temps today, but a snowstorm came in. But all this past 3 weeks before, it's been in the 50s to high 40s. And one thing to consider, especially with flat Earth, is that the explanation for why it gets colder in the winter is because the sun is further away. So if because not having moisture levels, not having the snow and having rain instead, that's one thing, cyclical patterns of moisture. But the warmth itself and the heat that you feel from the sun when you're out on a sunny day at the time of the year is based on supposedly how far we are on your latitude and whatnot away from the sun. So if we're feeling temperatures that are warmer when the sun's supposed to be further, what's going on with the sun to produce these temps at a time when it's usually colder due to the sun? You see what I'm saying?
Well, because it's not because according to the globe model, it's not because the sun is farther or closer that we feel more or less warmth. It's because of the incident angle, the watts per square meter of surface of Earth that the sun is shining on. So like if the sun is overhead, it's going to deliver the full 1,000 watts per square meter. If it's at 45 degrees, that's going to drop down to about probably about 700 watts per square meter. And then the lower it gets, it exponentially drops off to very few watts per square meter. And it's going through more atmosphere as well, so that dims it as somewhere as well.
Okay, so Jesse, so understanding that explanation for it, right? What would produce, and we're talking about, let's say, the winter solstice, shortest day of the year. So the shortest period of time watts per square meter could be attained in the year for that regional area. What would produce the same watts per square meter or temperatures that would have happened in the end of summer in that same general area with a lack of daylight and the shortest time of daylight in the year, but producing the same heat?
I'm not sure I'm following your question. Could you?
You're saying it's colder because of the angle and the less watts per square meter attained, or the less thermal heat absorption on the mass, right?
Right. I think that's correct. I think you're understanding what I said.
Okay. So if that's the case, then during winter it gets colder in areas because the angle doesn't produce as much watts per square meter, right? Much thermal absorption, right?
Right.
Okay. So if we have an area that has a set expected amount of heat to be produced because of the sun's angle and the thermal absorption that can be attained in that time period of the year, what would cause it for that same area to be producing or generate or absorbing thermal heat at a time when the sun would have been at a different angle producing that heat?
I apologize. I can't figure out what you're asking. Could someone else rephrase that for me?
I did it a third time too because I couldn't catch it. I'm sorry.
But I mean, are you asking how much hot, brighter the sun would have to be to give the equal surface, the watts per square meter, when it was at a slant that would have otherwise dropped to say 50%?
There you go. You did understand.
Well, I guessed based on some of the words in your sentence. But okay, so if the angle was such, what's the angle for 50%, Cyrus? Well, anyway, let's see, whatever the angle is for...
About 50% of 90?
Yeah.
45, but it's not for solar flux, though.
Well, but
I'd have to look up in a table.
Yeah, it's basically the sine. What's the sine of... What value is x when the sine of x equals 0.5?
Sure, yeah, that works.
But anyway, let's say the angle is such that it's 500 watts per square meter instead of 1,000 watts per square meter. The sun would have to be twice as bright to bring it back up to the 1,000 watts per square meter.
Okay, and that's the whole basis of the presentation of the point. Something's up with the sun. It's not simply global warming. It's not simply a different weather pattern. The weather patterns bring in moisture and such like that. The heat that's generated comes from the sun. So for the days to be warmer when the sun's supposed to be at a different angle, causing it to be cooler, and it's not just a few degrees or even 10 degrees, but let's say 30 to 40 degrees warmer than usual in that same time frame. That says something's up with the sun.
Were you trying to get in there, Cyrus? I saw you light up for a minute.
No, you're good. I'm just hot micing. I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
Just okay.
Well, so if you do the math and actually, take into account the claimed change in distance of the sun between summer and winter, and the change in angle, you'll find out that winter should be colder. It is closer in the winter, but it's not closer enough to overcome the increased angle and the reduced daylight hours, nor the increased atmosphere. Because also when the sun is at a lower angle, it's going through more thicker atmosphere, which is why it's dimmer, which is why it gets to a red-orange color and fades out as it sets sometimes.
So again, something would have to be up with the sun to permeate through that thicker atmosphere to cause it to be warmer at a time when it's supposed to be colder.
I'm not aware of any time that it's warmer when it should be colder.
That's what I was just expressing in my area. And I have been asking people who are 80 to 90 years old if they have experienced this weather in their entire life of living in this area. And every single one of them have unanimously said this is the first time this has ever happened where winter feels like this, where we're taking walks and doing and laying concrete posts and things like that and doing our normal summer activities and work in the winter, in December, going into January, and everybody's operating as if it's springtime. Like the grass is still growing, buds are forming on trees and stuff. Something's up with the sun. That's the only, even from no matter the model, that would be the only explanation, is something's up with the sun.
Well, that would, if something was up with the sun, then you will be vindicated 100%, because the amount of electricity that solar panels put out is directly proportional to the amount of light that reaches them from the sun. And so if something's up with the sun, this will 100% show up in millions of people's solar power logging systems.
And that's an interesting thing that you point out, because I am fully off grid, fully solar, and I have recognized a difference in, and it's actually not an increase. That's what's weird to me. It's not an increase. It's a decrease in efficiency. And weirdly enough, in these winter times, I've been getting an increase in efficiency where the solar panels are producing way more than they're rated for. But all during the summer, it's a lack of efficiency. Now I've thought, well, maybe it's just, as solar panels get hot, their efficiency kind of drops, and cooler times producing more efficiency. But I'm seeing higher charging frames than I am during the summertime for winter, oddly enough.
Well, it's
and
not.
then I'm also getting a really good charge lately, even when clouds are out.
Okay, that's weird.
Well, so three things. One is, it is true that solar panels are much more efficient when they are colder, because they produce basically a constant current based on the amount of light hitting them. And then the voltage they produce is variable depending on temperature. So if you look up the voltage temperature curve for any diode, it's basically the same for any solar panel cell. They're around 0.5 volt per cell, and the colder they get, the higher that is, and the hotter they get, the lower that is. If they're super scorching hot, it could be half that. If they're cold, it'll be more than that. So yes, you definitely will get, and they're rated for a hot day or some sort of medium day. They're not, so the rated power is for, hot days, because that's usually when they're running. People run them in hot country, hot areas. But so that will cause them to exceed their rated power when they're cold. And as far as better charging in the winter, that would be a climate thing where the clouds are a little bit thinner and more light is coming through. If you're getting more current in the winter, that is 100% proof that you're getting more light through the clouds, one way or another. Or the average temperature is just colder too.
Mm-hmm.
Or a combination of both.
Yeah. The biggest one to me is having days where it's 59, 62, when the average, the historical average, the always experienced by anybody who's lived here average, is in the teens, in the low 20s for the daytime. To go from low 20s to the teens with sun out, with the sun out. With the sun out is when you get those, it might go up to like the middle, the mid 20s to, it might touch 28, 29, but you won't see 30 till like end of January going into February. From like second week of December, you don't see 30, the mid 30s again until like going in end of January. We've had, again, almost the 60s through the whole month going into January. I mean, the last couple of weeks were high 40s.
So what was it last year for this month?
Last year was actually the first shift. Last year it was low 30s going into December. But it's always the first 2 weeks of January are the coldest. That's when we get like our negative 19s, daytime temps of like 3 to 5 degrees. And we're going into January in the 40s.
Well, I would be very interested if you can get average temperatures for December and January for this for now and for a year ago and a year before and maybe a year before. I would be fascinated. It would be very interesting to see if there actually is an average large difference from the normal.
Yeah, I've had a weather station going for the past like 4 years.
Oh,
I think
cool!
it's reported averages.
I would love to see that data.
Let me see if I log into the site and pull it up.
But I think you can see if the temperature is changing a massive amount, but your solar performance isn't changing proportionally, then it's probably not a change in the sun's output, but rather just the weather in your area.
Well, it could be the sun's output, though, Jesse. It's messing with the weather. Like the solar cycle, I think we're in a maximum right now. I think. Got to look it up.
Oh, yeah. Or kind of
But
near
that's
the end of
microwaves. Yeah, right. I think we're near like the end of the maximum. We're at the peak or at the end of the peak or something.
Yeah.
So, but that's microwaves, right? Like 10 centimeter band or something like that. So your solar panels would not reflect that, even though things would heat up. You know, you got more energy coming in, just on a different bandwidth.
Yeah, but like if the sun's output was 10% higher, that would 100% show up as a 10% increase on your solar panels in direct sun.
Yeah, and like photonic output, we'll call that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or photoactive radiation.
And to test this, all you have to do is take a solar panel, set it up, and then take a mirror and shine more light on it, and you can see the current go way up. If you like take and put double sun on it.
So I make like I can read voltage of them like whenever it's a full moon. Like the panels do make 0 amps, no power. But it's like I got some voltage on the system. This is weird. And like volts, 0 amps. Like okay, no, you can't. I mean, maybe if I disconnect the entire array, maybe it'll run an LED. I don't know if it has some current. Like it just nothing. But that's funny though.
Yeah, let's see. I could calculate that. The sun is supposed to be 400,000 times brighter than the moon. So how many amps does your array normally make?
The small one, DC. Fuck, or no? You want amps? You want amps off the voltaic array? Yeah. Hold on. So let me do some. I got them hooked up in 2S. Yeah, 2S.
Or just if you tell me the wattage and the volts, I can just divide it.
Well, I'm just trying to run the volts in my head. I forgot how many volts to run. Because display, I'm just running a small unit right now because doing some remodeling for the big array, so I haven't hooked up the large inverter. So let's see. So it's 1,000. I think I have. So yeah, they're about 100 volts each side. Only 100-watt panels for each, so 800 watts. But I do make over 1,000 in the summer. So in the summer, yeah, 10% over the rated capacity of the panel. I think that's just rating stuff.
Yeah, they
they
might rate them based on what they're going to be after they're 10 years old or something.
Anyway. Yeah, I don't. Right, it's the rating thing. Yeah, I clearly make 10% over the rated power.
So 1,000 watts and 100 volts DC coming out of the array.
Yeah, it's a 10 amp max fuse on that. So
okay.
Only 10 amp. I know that for a fact because of the wires. The wires can do 20. Because I'll run the future system at 500. Same thing, only 10 amps.
Well, you should get 25 microamps in the moonlight,
25 mic. Okay. Oh my god. All right. Cool. Microamps.
So
you know what? At some point, this this little array will be disconnected, right? So once I disconnect that, I can actually put the fluke on it. See how many amps, microamps.
Yeah. So what you could do is if you had a little pulsar circuit that would let the 100 volts slowly build up in a little capacitor, or the 25 microamps, and then pulse it into an LED, you probably could get a little flash.
You sound like what was that? Jewel thief? Little jewel thief?
Yeah, that.
Like that? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, sure, because there's some potential there. You can get some microflap with you. Yeah. That would be cool to do, just for shits and giggles.
Okay, I got some data, Jesse.
Oh, good.
I have from 2022, 23. There was a gap from last winter in 24. I forgot my weather station went down. I had to get another one, or replace it last winter. And then this month for this winter. So 2022, from December 1st, December 31st, high 42.1, low set negative 17.5. 2023, high of 57.4, low of negative 3.5. And then there's a gap of 2024. And then you have 2025, high of 78.8 and a low of 12.4. I remember that morning, it dropped to 12. And then within like an hour, it was back up to 20 something. It just started shooting back up.
I don't know if you heard me this morning, but there's a 150-degree temperature sway right now in North America between Texas at like 81 degrees and the Yukon being at negative 70. So
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like all in a single continent, you got a huge swing going on.
Wow. Yeah, I forgot about the other day when it almost hit 80. In December, everybody was like, "What is going on?"
I don't know. I don't know how that's possible. Like I could see it on two different continents, but on a same continent, bro, like 150-degree temperature swings, kind of odd.
Did all the old people that I work for and talk to, I've been asking all of them, "Have you ever felt a day like this in December?" And they're like, "No." They're like, "It's weird. My body doesn't think it's winter because the sun's heat. It's so hot. Like, when you're driving and the sun's out your window and the heat coming off of it, the heat emanating from the sun is just, it's like an early spring sun, a late summer sun. It's not a winter sun."
Yeah. No, I've never. I was saying that this morning. I can't recall Christmas with this sort of weather condition, like being a constant downpour like we're having right now in Cali. I don't think there's ever been one that I can recall in the last 40-some years.
No, shoot, you've seen all those pictures up 80 and everything of all the flooding that's been happening and all that in Reading and all that, huh?
I haven't seen too much in Reading. I'm kind of more focused on the burn zone areas and seeing how they're holding up because I
No,
know they're prone to mudslides and with as much rain as we're getting right now, I can't see it stabilizing.
I'll tell you what, it's a good time to go panning.
Oh, dude, that was that was like one of the first thoughts, bro. I was like, oh my god, dude, could you imagine how much gold is just being like displaced and just refilling all those zones that have already been cherry picked? Like, yeah, bro, for sure.
When you see those 100-foot pines being carried down the river, that equates to like
Well,
the
you're talking 1,000 year fucking potential 1,000 year deposits that have been covered up, being exposed. So yeah, dude, that's like a whole new replenishing, dude, of gold mining or prospecting right there.
well because they banned dredging and high banking. So this weather high banks everything and then like replenishes all the deposits.
Yeah, yeah, fucking awesome, dude. Like
Oh yeah.
every time it rains, dude, that's like one of my first thoughts. Is like, oh god, I wish I could be out there panning, dude, or just fucking something.
Isn't that called hydraulicing?
Well,
No,
yes and no. High banking is technically hydraulic mining, where you're blasting the side of the hillside with dirt. Because what people usually do if they're high bank dredging is they'll use the pump from the dredge to blast the bank and then dredge all the dirt that falls into the river because the water is going to carry away all the light stuff, and so the heavy stuff will be right there. So then you just dredge where all the slough fell in. So technically, yeah.
I think a high banker is just a sluice that's out of the water, not out of the river on the bank, and it uses a pump to circulate water through it.
No.
well, you can circulate the water, but typically, if you're going to be that close to a water source, you're not going to recirculate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pump it out of the river or whatever, but although a lot of
Well,
states want you to get a permit to pump out of the river, so that's why you might have to circulate. But anyway, the high banker is just a sluice that's out of the, it's not in the river, it's on the bank.
Yeah, that's why it's called a high banker.
Yeah, high banker and high banking are the difference between a piece of equipment and a technique.
Yeah, but using
That's why I said most people who are high banking are dredging. They'll use the pump from the dredge to blast the bank. The bank above the river, when you're blasting that and you're running that's high banking. They do have
that's hydraulicking, yeah. That's
Yeah,
hydraulicking.
yeah. That's going to be unique to like the type of deposit you're working with, right? And a lot of times there's got to be like an eroded hillside or something to work off of. But you're not always going to use that sort of method in conjunction with a high banker. If you are doing that method, then yes, you would always be using a high banker. But point is you're not always going to use a high banker with that method.
Yeah. Most of the guys I knew were high banking. They were down in the deep creeks or the forks of the river in the mountains, and what they were doing was they were blasting the areas where like giant trees were and their roots are all there. So they're blasting all that dirt from under the roots and on the bank, and then they're dredging the material. The dredges you're using the same pump, but you're just sucking up the dirt and it's running it through a sluice and passing all that material down the river. But they banned that in California because they say it poisons the fish and clouds the water and all this stuff.
And Jesse briefly touched on that. So the difference is when you pump that water out of the natural river, what they don't want you to do is allowing it to flow back into the river. You got to have a separate pool,
settling pond. Yeah, my state requires you to have a little make your own little settling puddle that your high banker drains into.
Shoot, they've gotten all jumpy and started trying to tell panners up in the mountains, oh, you can't pan here, and just taking an authoritative role. And there's a whole bunch of gold mining clubs suing BLM for doing this.
I think actually, in my state, you can't even use a little electric battery operated pump now anymore without getting a permit, applying for and being granted a special permit. You have to just put your sluice in the river like good old days.
You wouldn't be able to use a recirculating sluice then?
I don't think so. I'll have to look at the rules. It's been a while since I went gold panning, but I think I'll have to look. But yeah, I think they don't allow any motorized anything. I think that was the rule. No motors of any kind for any reason at all without a permit. I think that's what Washington did.
Yeah, I think most places are like that. Like a lot of it is just like gold panning, like you said, no motorized equipment and shit unless you got a permit. A lot of places are that way. I know in Cali it is.
And those sites
What if I have a rotary water displacing apparatus? It's not a motor.
As long as it's not a combustible motor, you should be fine.
Like if you have
just a rotating apparatus. It's a fucking motor, but just don't call it a motor. It's a rotating apparatus.
Well, like I said,
displaces water. It's a pump.
As long as it's not combustible, running off a combustible engine. Let me specify the difference between a motor and an engine. Because a motor is electric, right? Which you could use technically, but an engine you can't, being that it's combustible. So if you had a solar panel setup and a motor, then yeah, technically you probably could.
Let me just look for Washington here. I think they specifically forbid even electric motors.
But I don't know about that. I see a lot of guys using power tools like drills, electric drills, and there's systems you can set up using just a freaking electric power drill, cordless power drill to sluice with. I sent the video to Jeremy. He probably never watched it, but yeah, I think it has to do with gas due to the EPA and pollution more than anything. But go ahead, Jesse.
I am currently reading in the Washington rulebook for gold panning. I'll come back in a minute when I have the answer.
Right on.
Oh, it says you may use only non-motorized handheld mineral prospecting tools and the following mineral prospecting equipment: pans and non-motorized sluices, non-motorized concentrators, mini rocker boxes, and non-motorized high bankers with rifle areas totaling 3 square feet or less, including ganged equipment. No vehicle-mounted winches, one hand-operated winch. Let's see. Oh, I got company.
Merry Christmas, Jesse.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all you guys. I hope everybody had a good Christmas and
Merry
got
Christmas.
what they wanted.
Yep. You too, Cole. You too, Arwen.
Thanks.
Jesse, you back?
I am back, but I am still looking for clues in the rulebook here.
Yeah, it sounds like you specified motorized. So fuck, it sounds like I could be wrong in terms of electric versus combustive, and it just sounds like they're broad brushing anything that could.
Right, and it even prohibits siphon. So in other words, you can't even get a siphon tube from upstream to feed your high banker sluice, because even though that's not producing any exhaust. Yeah.
That's weird. Why are they so restrictive, dude?
No, it's unfortunately it's a very liberal state, and that's what you get.
They don't want you to get
What if you
go.
use a hand crank pump for your circulating sluice?
So they were doing
Can't
this type of
prohibit
bullshit with.
pumps.
Yeah, they were playing all this type of like Nazi bullshit with the dirt bike community, and they set up registration stickers depending if you had red or green was the difference in how often you could ride. Like red sticker, I think you could only ride 3 months out of the year, versus a green sticker was year round. And they started trying to tighten down on that, and the dirt bike community got together and pushed back and lifted all of that. Now you still have to have a registration, but there's no significant difference between red or green stickers. So it's almost like if you want any sort of rules to get changed, it's like you got to really band together. And unfortunately, I don't think the mining community is all that large. So
It's all old men that
Yeah.
are really.
well, it's a dying community, man. Like there's not too many young men out there that desire to prospect or know anything about geology for that matter. So
Which is a real shame, if you ask me.
right, dude, geology's awesome, dude. I wish I knew more about it.
Well, it does look like if you've got you could take and hook a little pump to a bicycle and have a friend come along and bring a lot of granola bars and just keep feeding in the granola bars, and he's sitting there pedaling, and then you could run your mini high banker off of that, I think. Cause
And I get 10% royalties for giving that. Welcome.
But I mean, with the prices of gold surging, like you would think that there would be plenty of incentive for people to go, hey, I got a new interest I'm gonna try and build upon. But I don't know, man.
The thing is, though, at the same time, Dyson, I'm sure you'll understand this. Gold mining is also a very secretive hobby. It's not one of those hobbies where people are running around telling,
So yes, that is the case. But however, there is more readily available information on gold mining than any other time in history, and
Yes.
the prices are higher than they've ever been in any other time in history. So I don't know. It's like you put two and two together and add a little technology and innovation in that. It just seems like a no-brainer. But I don't know.
no, I'm not secretive about any of my gold mining in Washington, because where I am, there's just not enough to make any money at all. But it's still fun to go get a little bit of color in your pan.
Yeah.
Now, if I ever find the mother lode, then I'll be secretive.
Well, that's the thing. You don't even need the mother lode these days, dude. Like,
In
I'd
Washington,
like to put together a team.
what's that?
Can you imagine what it was like back in the day when they first got to California and Alaska, and they literally could pick nuggets up just out of the creeks?
That wasn't even too long ago here in California. You could still talk to old timers who could talk about going down the Sacramento River and just flipping over small boulders and picking up pebbles of gold.
So So there's still plenty of untapped zones like that in like Alaska, and other parts of the world.
There's an area up through the Sierras off of 80 that not many people know was never touched by the gold miners because the natives that were in that one area called the Washisho, which I believe where the Washoe term even comes from, would kill any gold miner on site. And so that area never got tapped because by the time those natives were pushed out, the gold mining era had ended. So that whole area you can walk through the creeks and the rivers there, and none of the rocks are stacked. Nothing's been turned over. It's just fresh. And there's a few people I know that go through and have found gems in the water and stuff like that, raw rubies and such.
I wonder if wind-up equipment, like with a big clock spring in there, would also qualify as non-motorized.
So
Yeah, I believe so because it's mechanized, not motorized, right? So they didn't say anything about pumps or mechanized equipment. So you're free to
Well,
have all the whatchamacallit, like energy
almost gotta
harvesting
kinda-
wheels.
you almost got to kind of look into it a little further, dude, and see how they're perceiving that, because these are the kind of issues when dealing with like legalities and legal terms and definements. Like it's always like kind of subjectively interpreted. It's not always as black and white as you'd think. So
Well, when they say no motorized stuff and you can't even siphon, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they're just trying to make it really primitive and hard on people.
yeah, yeah, they are, and I think a lot of it too has to do with your local municipalities. Like over here, we deal with Bureau of Land Management, so you'll have a designated officer for that particular region, and oftentimes they're not hard to get a hold of. So you just find out who it is, like your county, and get their name, call them, talk to them. Because, like I said, a lot of these guys are, they're human beings, but a lot of them are, just kind of individually interpreting things, not like as black and white as you'd think. So it's just kind of depending on who you're working with. You could call them, you can ask them questions and shit. They'll tell you the ins and outs and do's and don'ts for the most part.
Well, Washington publishes a little pamphlet for hobby gold prospectors titled Fish and Gold, Rules for Mining, or Gold and Fish, Rules for Mining, or Rules for Mineral Prospecting and Placer Mining. So, and it's written for ordinary people. So that's pretty much what we have to work with. And when it comes right down to it, that's going to be what stands in the end. Regardless of, I wouldn't want to, find an official and get him to say I could do something that the pamphlet said I couldn't, because at the end of the day, it's what the pamphlet says that's gonna matter in court, right?
Well, yeah, but you got a lot of like surrounding other activities, just even like getting there and what you're going to do while you're there. Like if you're going to have a campfire, you might need a specific permit in that area. And that guy might be a stickler for that. And he'll tell you straight up, like, hey, if you guys are going to be here, this, that, the other, don't do, or if you do, such and such. Or you might even say to the opposite, like, hey, this and that's kind of a rule, but we don't really kind of look the other way on that. We're more focused on this. Just saying, like, you kind of get a good idea of what you're up against, just making a quick phone call.
So what do you think, Cyrus? How many tape measure springs do I have to harvest and put into a large contraption in order to run a small pump for half an hour?
Dude, I was thinking of a different thing. You get a minivan and you get like a 4-foot diameter cast iron wheel, and at home you just spin it up, overnight to 100,000 RPM or something. You just keep it spinning and you power everything off of that, in the woods. It's not a motor; it's a flywheel. It's a spinning flywheel.
I had that exact thought, but most of the places I can would be really hard to get that to the creek, especially spinning up.
Yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near the thing that's spinning. It's like, thank you, dude. Yeah,
But-
bicycle, bro. The bicycle idea is great. Bicycle and a little pump you can hook up on the back wheel. Take the back wheel off. They didn't say anything about pumps. You just motorized. Okay, just use your feet. And
Now-
granola bars, like you said.
Yeah. Now, a flywheel, or I guess if the bicycle had a really heavy back wheel, like if it was one of those solid rubber ones, then the person pedaling could actually take small breaks, and the wheel would keep spinning and keep running the pump.
Yeah, dude. You can come up with cool contraptions for sure.
You got a creek, couldn't you use like a paddle wheel in the water, like a water wheel power? If you have running water already.
I'm thinking they wouldn't like that. If they're gonna, that would be
They said no siphoning, right?
yeah, that would basically be a
But
form of siphoning.
How about gravity feeding? That's fine. That's anti-siphoning. So what if you have a storage tank, and you just use the bicycle to pump the water in your whatever, 30-gallon drum or whatever, and that way the flow rate does not change, right? You want constant flow rate down your sluice, yeah? So that controls the ball valve there, controls the flow rate, as long as, you keep the line filled up, or, up to the line, you think. Kind of way. That's your energy storage. That's your flywheel right there, without a flywheel.
2. That does not say bucket. So if you had a paddle wheel, turning a rope chain of little buckets, You know the bucket pumps, the bucket lift systems.
Yeah, boom. It's fine, and you can move so much more water that way too. It's like, okay, these guys.
That would be
yeah,
funny.
paddle wheel works.
Yeah, if
That's
you're
crazy.
as long as the water is not going into a hose, pipe, or tube.
This is show up with a 10-foot wheel. I got you guys in the middle of the river. It's fine. It's legal. What are you gonna do about it? Wow. Versus a guy just with an electric, little drill wants to do his thing, little hobby.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so excavator buckets on a big wheel. All right. And then you have a ramp up top so that's the water delivery system, and just delivers it straight into the sluice. But you can't have gravity do anything though. So how can you run a sluice?
Well, as long as that water at no point goes into a pipe, tube, or hose. So the little buckets could just dump right into the top. Well, it could go into a chute.
Wait, a trough. They
Yeah,
didn't
I was
mention
gonna
trough.
say
Yeah.
Let's go,
Go into-
trough.
Yep, a chute, a trough, or run down a rain chain.
a ditch.
A ditch.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, wording is important when it comes to in court, when it comes to rules and laws. So I think you could get away with it.
I mean, you really got to prove to me that my rotary vane apparatus is a pump here. Depends how you define pump. So if it is Archimedes screw, this is not an Archimedes screw. This is a rotary vane water displacing, fluid displacing apparatus. I'm not going to even mention water. So prove it wrong. No, that's what it is. It's classified as. You may call it pump. Sure. It displaces fluid. It tries to. Differential pressure. So that's what, 20% royalties so far, Jesse? I think my royalties are increasing, man. That's good. So we got a big flywheel, minivan. Let's see what else. What else are you showing up with? No pipes of any kind. Froth is allowed. All right.
What about animal power? You could bring a little mini pony and he's like walking on a little treadmill or something.
It's fine. Yeah, it should be okay. Hooked up to the pump. So how do you pump the water out? I mean, yeah, without using tubes. Just paddle. Oh, you're gonna do the paddle wheel thing.
Have you seen those pumps or those water lift systems where there's a bunch of little scoops all tied onto basically like a couple of ropes? So it's like a big chain, like a bicycle chain. It's got sprockets but it's these little cups all along the ropes, and they go down and they scoop with water, and then they come up and they dump.
Yeah. Seen it.
So I think
Seems
that
like archaic types of that.
yeah, exactly. But it's buckets, and it could transport it up out of the creek and horizontally as well over, and then dump it right into the top of the sluice, or into a little chute that then drained into the sluice.
Right.
You know what would be really funny is to take out and like mock copper steel, like you're a bootlegger or something, because it would fit the style of stuff you're using.
That would be cool.